Welcome, welcome, and Happy New Year. It's so great to sit down with you today as we begin a new program and series that is so close to my heart that it's sort of, I feel a little vulnerable sitting in front of you and going where we're going to be going, but I'm so excited. You'll recall, maybe not, that I sent out a little blurb about what was going to be happening here. And so I want to share that with you at the beginning. This is going to be a short video, just about 15 minutes of introduction into the idea of working with creative energy levels. I'm going to follow that immediately with a second video, and this will be a series of videos that most likely will include about 9 total, but I'll parse them out over the next while so as not to inundate you, and I'll keep them as short and as crisp as I possibly can. The fact that you're here, I want to honor that because there's so many ways for us to be pulled in different directions. And as we want to remind ourselves when we come together in this space, this is about our creative capacity to grow and evolve in our own way, at our own pace. There's nobody pushing us. This is not a race. As we like to remind ourselves, we can hush the rush, even if only for 15 minutes a day. And so with that in our awareness, let's look at my introduction that I sent out a couple of days ago. It says, welcome and greetings of this newest year. There's a pause at this turn of the wheel, and at the same time, there's a quickening as we begin the new Gregorian calendar walk. Here at the start, we feel the mix of what has been, as well as the magnetic pull toward what will be. To honor this turn, I'll be sharing a series of short videos that explore roots as well as wings. The videos will set a tone for the global creative energy that 2024 offers to each of us. This is a year that invites us to author our experience by acknowledging where we have come from, setting the stage for who we are being now. How the Light Gets In by Pat Schreider helps to set the scene. And she writes, to open a door in one's mind, whether in writing, in prayer, or in writing as prayer, is to invite an experience of the deep. It is rather like standing on the edge of a cliff overlooking the ocean at night. A cliff from which I can hear the pounding surf below me and see in the distance a multitude of stars. I am aware of danger, but I'm also aware of my own freedom and my own good sense. Although I could do so, I will not back up, close down, and refuse to see and hear. Although I could do so, I will not step out and lose myself. I will not fall to my death. I will stand where I am and allow the vast expanse to come to me through my eyes, through my ears, through wind moving the tiny hairs on my skin, through the pressure of the solid rock against the soles of my feet. I feel awe. I feel my own smallness. But I feel that I too belong. If I am open to the possibility, I sense that I am seen, I am known, I am held in the attention of the mystery. Pat Schreider, How the Light Gets In. I thought that was a lovely gift that just came into my lap as I was beginning to prepare for this sharing. And, you know, just to give you just a tiny little bit of background, And the idea is that we're constantly reminded not to dwell on the past and not to default to where we've been, not to fantasize the future, and not to get ahead of ourselves. It's one of the most challenging and wonderful creative energy opportunities to remind ourselves to be here now, to be in the now. I often walk my dog, and as I walk, I don't carry any electronics with me, don't bring my phone, don't have my earbuds in. I'm present to the situation and the environment that I'm in. And as I walk, I'll often remind myself that I am here. I'm whole. I'm perfect because I'm perfectly protected. I'm strong and I'm powerful because I'm powerfully connected. As Pat Schreider says, through the soles of the feet and through the conscious connections that we make, we're connected. We're like open channels for spirit and for light and for creative energy. And even before we do anything, we can feel like, oh, yes, something wonderful is emerging. Something wonderful is on its way. And when we give ourselves those gifts, those kinds of messages, certainly, life comes to meet us in all its many forms. But if we're gifting ourselves with beautiful and true reminders of our goodness, of our beauty, of our capacity to grow and change and evolve, well, then when life comes to knock on the door and bring us situations and circumstances that we could not have imagined, we'll have our souls connected to the earth. We'll have our consciousness connected to something bigger than ourselves and something greater than ourselves. And we won't flounder for any longer than necessary. So this is about creative energy. And there are levels of creative energy. And in the videos that follow, we'll be exploring the 9 primary creative energy levels. Actually 10, because we're going to start with 0. We're going to start with the ring past knot of the circle. And as we step into these videos, you'll be able to make your notes and share them with someone that you would like to be able to chat with about where are we going with our own creative energy. So here we are at the beginning of a most extraordinary year, during a most extraordinary time to be on the planet. It's just stunning that each and every one of us decided to come here to the 3rd dimensional plane at this time. If we think of the earth as we often hear it referred to now, since we've been able to see ourselves from the distance of the moon and outer space, we're a little marble floating, just floating in the universe. And yet we're all here together. And our creative energy is what moves us forward and what gives us a sense of stability, a sense of here I am here. I'm whole. I'm perfect just the way I am. Emerson says, my imperfect adores my perfect. So it's not about how great I am. It's about how incredible every living being is. Every living being is a miracle. And as we explore creative energy levels, we're going to have an opportunity to connect with our whole self. I'm going to give you just a glimpse of the visual that we'll be working with as we go forward. This is the creative energy guide. And this is just, a little drawing that I did to represent how we're all a little alien. We all just kind of drop in here, but our creative energies give us focus, give us attributes, provide us with values, And every creative level has a positive force field and a negative force field, just as a battery does. But we don't judge the positive as, oh, I got to get there, and the negative is as, oh, I got to get away from there. We stand in the middle of the positive and the negative for each of the levels, and we become scholars. We become educated. We become more and more curious. We'll each and every one of us listening to this now and in the future will be able to mine our own gold in each of the fields that we'll be working with. So I'm very excited and I'm very honored and I'm very sort of, as I said, I feel vulnerable and kind of, all sparkly because I'm sharing something in these creative energy fields that is research that I've been doing since I owned my gallery in the early 80s. And I'll sprinkle in some stories as we go about how this work came to meet me and how it has evolved. But the story that I want to leave you with now is that we kind of come complete, right? We're born, as David Whyte, the poet, says, with everything we need. Everything we need we had the moment before we were born, he tells us in his poetry. And I love that. I love that we're like a complete package, but we discover ourselves as we peel away the years, and it takes us a good long while to really get to know ourselves. And we're never done, never, ever, ever done. One of my primary mentors, Alice, reminded me when she was in her 80s, shortly before she passed, that it doesn't necessarily get easier. And yet there's a quality of trust and faith that grows in us because of where we've come from. And so our stories are important. Our stories are what makes us who we are. But again, we don't want to keep defaulting into the past unless we can bring the storyline forward as a benefit, as an investment in the time of our lives. So my little story as I close, and it's just a sort of a hint as how the creative energies came to meet me. When I was 7 years old, I was a very gutsy little kid, and I wandered around in the area where I was living growing up. From my birth until 10 years of age, my family lived it was a duplex, a little side-by-side house that it would be considered a tiny house, I believe, at this point in time. My dad was born there, was raised there, and his sister lived on the other side of the wall, and they were rooted. They lived where they had grown up, and they had no intention of moving ever. So I lived in this home where my dad had grown up, and it was a little ethnic neighborhood that was surrounded on three sides by railroad tracks. They were, 1,000 feet this way, 1,500 feet that way. But all these little houses were nestled into this U shape of railroad yards, switching yards, lots of commerce, lots of trains, lots of train whistles, lots of black smoke, lots of alive, oh, for a kid. And I often followed some of the bigger kids, the 9-year-olds, the 10-year-olds. I'm 7 years old, and noticed what they did. And some of the kids climbed up this big trestle and went into an old rail car that sat on the top of a trestle bridge. It was abandoned. A lot of the windows were broken out. And I climbed up there by myself one day, and the whole car seemed to be filled with notepads, blank sheets of paper. And here I was, a 7-year-old little budding artist, and I didn't have a lot of paper. So I thought, oh, I'm going to gather up these notepads. And I brought all these notepads back to my little room. And I think I probably hid them because I certainly was not supposed to be where I had been. Every notepad was labeled. It was a business that had owned this old rail car, and every notepad was labeled the Rose Coal Company. And I started walking down the street one day, I only have this one memory of doing it this one day, but I think it's like a seed. We remember we come complete. And you were planting seeds from the very beginning of your life, as was I. And so at 7, I was mesmerized and sort of compelled to walk down my little alley, Fenwick Alley, and I just recorded the numbers of every house. Every number I could find, I wrote down in a long column on this one notepad. I didn't think any more about it. I don't know why I did it. We're all very kind of connected and intuitive at that point in time. But many, many, many years later, several decades later, I was sitting in my gallery and people would come into my gallery, and it was a beautiful little jewel of a space. And I'd come out of the back where my studio was, and I'd chat with people, and we'd sit at my desk. And invariably, the conversation would turn to the idea of what it takes to be an artist and what it takes to live successfully as an artist. Great questions. And I was my antennas would go up, and I was just like, yeah, how am I doing this? And this is so cool. I've got this gallery. I make this beauty. I share other people's work. I focus on emerging artists who go to the Cleveland Institute of Art. And I'm just, kind of in my element. How am I doing this? So I began to research what was making this all work, and it all led to numbers. So I'm very, very excited that I will be sharing with you the culmination of, well, it's ongoing, there's no culminating, but I'm going to be sharing with you my creative energy guide and the levels of energy fields and how they function. And if you're familiar at all with the chakra system, the meridians that flow through our bodies, they're unseen, but they're like electrical currents. And we want to be plugged in, right? We want to be alive. Oh, we want to feel that our life is our life. And certainly we want that, because then we have the compassion and the compulsion to connect with every living being as part of the beauty, the wonder, and the magnificent, never to be repeated opportunity that this life offers to you, to me, that life wants us to be alive and joyful. And the mystery infuses us with gifts and skills and talents that are ours alone. And my intention is to remind us of how we can break those skills and talents down into levels of creative energy that we can mine the gold from. So that's my little intro. And I will be following this with a first part of how to step into the creative energy levels, and specifically how the creative energy of 2024 is sort of visiting the globe. So we'll kind of, mine the goal together. I invite you to leave a comment, to subscribe to the channel, and to share it with others. If you've worked with me over the years, that this is a very intimate space, but there's something really powerful about coming together in small circles and reminding ourselves that everything we need, we had the moment before we were born. Donna, Iona, Drozda, Wren House Studio. Creative energy levels is our next adventure. Take good care, and I'll see you soon. I'm going to get over here. Yeah, I'm bumpy at the end.